As we are only a few months away from the release of Matt Reeves' The Batman movie, I thought now would be a good time to look into everything we know so far about the upcoming film. Let's get into it. Now, interestingly enough, plans for this film began all the way back in 2014, when DC had plans of competing with the MCU and creating their own cinematic universe. Now, it of course made sense to have that universe built around the most popular superhero in the world, Batman. An important part of this concept was of course Ben Affleck as Batman, but not only as the man behind the cowl, but also the man in the director's chair for the project, simply titled The Batman. The film was to tie in with Batman vs Superman and the Justice League movies. Affleck had even teased that the main villain of the film would be Deathstroke, sharing an image of the costume test with Joe Manganiello, who was set to play the character after making a brief appearance in the Justice League. Rumours even suggested that the film would have taken place mainly within Arkham Asylum, which is something fans were keen for after the success of the Arkham video games. I've heard it said many times before, and I agree to an extent, that to make the perfect Batman movie, you just have to mimic the vibe of those games, as they capture the vibe of Batman like nothing else has. A dark, action-packed detective story with a string of colourful yet demented villains. Anyway, after Batman vs Superman was considered a bit of a creative misfire, plans for Justice League started to change, meaning that Affleck was asked to rewrite major parts of his script to tie in with the change in story. In early 2017, Affleck stepped down as the director of the project, with Matt Reeves taking over. He also eventually handed the full writing duties over to Reeves as well, leaving Affleck's involvement in the project in the balance. There was a lot of back and forth rumours over the next year, but eventually Affleck stepped back from the film entirely, meaning that Reeves had the opportunity to bring his completely original story and vision for the Batman to life. Over the following months, the cast was revealed. Some were received better than others, but overall it's a pretty solid cast. We have Robert Pattinson as Batman and Bruce Wayne, Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman and Selina Kyle, Jeffrey Wright as Jim Gordon, Paul Dano as the Riddler, Colin Farrell, completely unrecognisable, as Penguin, and Andy Serkis as Alfred Pennyworth. Not only is the film led by a powerful cast, but the cinematographer for this project has me truly excited. The director of photography is Greg Fraser, and a look at any shots from the trailers we have seen so far, you can see just how beautiful and visually stunning this movie is going to be. Not only does it look impressive, but more importantly, its visual style is fitting to the world of Batman, and that is something that I feel has been lacking in previous Batman films. If you want to see previous example of Fraser's stunning work, you can see it in movies and TV shows such as Zero Dark 30, Star Wars Rogue One, multiple episodes of The Mandalorian, and most recently, Dune. So now that we have some of the behind the scenes stuff covered, let's get into the story itself. At DC Fandom 2020, Reeves said that in his story, Batman is still finding himself, so too are the rogues gallery of villains. And although Matt Reeves has stated that this is a completely original story, the number of villains that are rumoured to appear has many fans theorising that the project may be taking inspiration from The Long Halloween. The Long Halloween is a comic book that is very much a detective story, something that Reeves has said that he wants this film to be. A story focusing more on Batman as the world's greatest detective, an element that the more recent action-focused versions of the character have somewhat downplayed. I think that aspect of it, along with both stories being fairly early in Batman's career, will be the only ones really connecting the Batman to The Long Halloween. Reeves has stated himself on many occasions that the movie is heavily inspired from the comic book Batman Year One of the most loved Batman arcs ever, apparently taking inspiration from themes that the comic deals with. Perhaps these themes could be the corruption in Gotham and the difficult challenge that Batman has to face and overcome. We know from the second trailer, I believe it was, that the main villain in the story is the Riddler. The first time we have seen this character brought to life since Jim Carrey played him in Batman Forever. Though this one, I assume, will be considerably different, darker, deranged, dangerous, and more serious. The full story synopsis from the film's official website reads, 2 years of stalking the streets as the Batman, striking fear into the hearts of criminals, has led Bruce Wayne deep into the shadows of Gotham City. With only a few trusted allies, Alfred Pennyworth, Lieutenant James Gordon, amongst the city's corrupt network of officials and high-profile figures, the lone vigilante has established himself as the sole embodiment of vengeance amongst his fellow citizens. When a killer targets Gotham's elite with a series of sadistic machinations, a trail of cryptic clues sends the world's greatest detective on an investigation into the underworld, where he encounters such characters as Selina Kyle, aka Catwoman, Oswald Cobblepot, aka the Penguin, Carmine Falcone, and Edward Nashton, aka the Riddler. As the evidence begins to lead closer to home and the scale of the perpetrator's plans becomes clear, Batman must forge new relationships, unmask the culprit, and bring justice to the abuse of power and corruption that has long plagued Gotham City. This outline is pretty generic and doesn't really give too much away, though the line "evidence begins to lead closer to home" makes me think that there will be some sort of twist or betrayal in the movie, something that has been rumoured for a while. I'm just praying that it's not something silly for the sake of shock, like Alfred betraying Bruce or something like that. That would absolutely kill me. In March of 2020, Reeves unveiled the first look at the Batmobile. Getting rid of the more stylised versions established in Batman 89 and onwards, this car in fact is essentially a muscle car with some pretty obvious modifications. Longtime readers of Batman comics may even recognise the design as one similar to the one Batman used through most of the 80s and 90s. The new Batmobile design continues the idea that Pattinson's Bruce Wayne is merely modifying existing gear rather than inventing Bat gadgets from scratch. An interesting departure from the previous Batman film adaptations. I'd like to talk briefly about the visual style for marketing for this film, the red and the black. This is something that I particularly love. In an age where everything is super colourful through its advertising, with posters filled with blues and oranges, they have broken that trend and kept it dark and simple. Not only that, but every time I see it, I think of Batman the Animated Series, which is still, to this day, the best Batman content we have ever had, so any inspiration they take from that, I'm happy with. Now, where does this movie fit within the DC universe? Now, at first it seems pretty obvious that it is a standalone movie, similar to The Joker. But with its initial tie-ins with Ben Affleck, it's clear that it was originally intended to be tied in with the rest of the DCEU. But with characters such as Jim Gordon and Alfred being replaced, who were originally played by J.K. Simmons and Jeremy Irons respectively, it seems highly unlikely that it will fit in anywhere. But then again, the DC universe is a place where world-changing events create convenient retcons. There are a few DC movies coming out in 2022, including The Flash, Aquaman and Black Adam, and to be honest, it wouldn't surprise me if they were in fact trying to connect them all to this Batman and rebuild their DC universe based around Pattinson. Now, I had started working on this video before the latest trailer dropped, so with a ton of new info coming from the video The Bat and the Cat, I've gone back to add that info in just before finishing this video off. The trailer shows that the Riddler has been leaving clues behind at his crime scenes for Batman. Selina Kyle tells Batman that Riddler's crimes are somehow tied to the Wayne family. Unless it's a clever editing job on the trailer, Riddler appears to know that Bruce Wayne is in fact Batman. Another scene shows Bruce telling Alfred that he lied to him. So if anything, this trailer has just given us far more questions than it has answers. If you'd like to see me cover the new trailer in full, be sure to let me know in the comments down below, and that's something I can do. I can't wait to start covering more Batman information as we get more and more leading up to the release of the film. That's pretty much all the information we have on it so far. If I've missed anything, please share it in the comments down below so that others and myself can see. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I hope you have a great day, and make sure you return to the Batcave for more Batman content.